This video is for the energy of April leading into May, especially the last half of April, which we're in now. So as I record this, 16th of April, we have the full moon in Libra. And there's really this feeling of an air of peace being brought about right now. So there's this lighter, freer energy, and it feels like in a way you can start to gain some clarity, make some sort of resolute decisions, or change little mini shifts, I would say, such as, for example, if you just think of the mundane example of in your household, maybe finally moving those little paper piles that you've been ignoring, right? Or tidying up an aspect of your kitchen, finishing off something in your to-do list, going and making those phone calls and finalising those. But there's also that feeling of perhaps being conflicted between where you are and who you are and where you spend your time. So making the choices of what to do, or being sort of stuck in that indecision, whereas you just need to get the ball rolling and get that action in. And also this sort of conflict between who and how you be for others, what you do for them and what you do for yourself. So who and where you lean your time into, and kind of the balance between all of those. So there's a bit of a family balance scale there. And there's also a reflection on how you give and take with others, and general sense of boundaries as well as something you've been working on over time, but perhaps sort of fine-tuning those details. Also, I must say, this does really match that 6-year energy that we are in numerologically. I might make another update video about that, because I've been feeling that, especially how we're sort of in the last month or so, it's like we're giving of ourselves to so many people or areas, and family things coming up quite a lot. So you might have been feeling that as well. So recently, so on April 12th, there was the Jupiter sort of Neptune conjunction. And this is really a time where we started to really open up more spiritually, where you would have noticed that you would have had these intuitive moments that are quite sharp, a sudden hunch or knowing, heightened dreams, very symbolic. It's like a big psychic opening, and a sort of more higher vibrational level of being and resonance. So if you really felt that, enjoy that and see how you can bridge that and further expand that into the next several weeks, where we're leading up to eclipse season, which I'll talk about in a moment. It was more of a sense of a soul expansion, and perhaps feeling like you're finally receiving some kind of intuitive downloads, or more of a connection back to soul and divine energy, and that kind of thing. You also may have noticed during this period, as well as before that, somewhat with all the energies, that you might have felt quite ungrounded at times, perhaps even just really a feeling of destabilization up in the higher realms, and just not quite there. So in my video I've just made also of this whole period leading up to April, I have mentioned this feeling of shifting realities and things not quite coming together yet, and that feeling of the unknown. So I just want to underline that again, that feeling of unknown can really be expanded and really make a lot of people feel very vulnerable, emotional, sensitive, and also anxious. So you might have had periods where you had heightened anxiety and stress, and any little thing just built up, whereas you felt like you couldn't deal, can't cope. I don't know who I am anymore, I'm going friggin' crazy. So now let's talk about moving in now to towards the end of April. So that really second half of April, we have this period of a rising consciousness leading up to the eclipse, which is happening right at the end of April, depending on where you live. So there's this really sort of heightening lead up period, and I'd really want to say what I feel for that is just ticking your boxes, crossing your Y's, just getting things done, getting motivated, doing the things you've been wanting to do, sort of picking up the pace. They're showing me like starting the momentum of the ball rolling. They're showing me that you actually have to push the ball, so the snowball yourself, you have to start pushing it to get that ball rolling, because otherwise you're going to feel like it's a block, like it's a big bloody boulder right in front of you that you can't move and budge. So for some people, just that extra little insight of, okay, I need to push that ball. I just need to get it rolling, and then it will form its own momentum and gather speed and gather more and more snow, will get bigger and bigger, but in a good, positive way. It's the good momentum ball rather than the bad one, which you've been feeling before escalating. I really get the feeling of it being an initiation stage where you're preparing to walk through the doorways of light, of change, of evolution, of growth, and the new you. And it's being ready to. So definitely address any hesitation or resistance, but I feel like, you've gone through a lot of that. So now shake it all off and mind over matter. Get ready to really walk through and come into the higher light. There's a new unknown beneath those doorways, talking sort of towards the end of April, May onwards, but that's it's a greater unknown than the one you've been in, whereas the one you've been in was quite a wide expanse of nothingness and sometimes confusion, but now, and sort of lower density, but now you're moving into a new horizon, so in a more positive way. It can feel for some like you've been climbing this rocky cliff that's never ending, and you've barely had your footing in the grooves of that cliff, but that it will be well worth it when you get to the top, and you're just starting to see snippets of that light now, which is great. And just a message for this second half of April, especially leading closer towards the eclipse at the end of the month. Archangel Michael coming through very strongly, so working with you, but in a more positive light, where I feel the message is to overturn the darkness and look more towards the light, to flip that. So if you've been more in the darkness and the lower energy, to flip that and start seeing the other side, the light. So he shows me as in holding like a scale of two lights. One is dimmer, so that's the past, which has been in the process of healing and transformation, and that getting dimmer and dimmer, that glow as it heals and resolves and transmutes, and to focus more on the brighter light on the other side of the scale. And this is what you're developing, moving into, moving more towards kind of new manifestation cycle of blooming with a higher frequency of light, which is what we've all been moving into. Whether we've liked it or understood it or not, it's moving us to something greater and closer to our higher divine selves. So just believe and trust in this process. Get back to your inner sacred self, where you know that the inner guidance you're receiving is real and true and something you can trust and count upon, and know that you and your loved ones are safe in this kind of crazy changing world. And to you, shine the light. You are the light worker, the light bearer. You have Archangel Michael behind you, protecting yourself, your children, your home, as you make these moves, changes, shifts, so that you can flip your reality and really prepare to enter something new with a higher mindset that is more aligned to a kind of God source, higher energy and realm level, where you can breathe and be, and finally gain some, the angels are showing me, like before your heartbeat or your breathing would have been more shallow and fast, and that kind of anxious kind of sort of shallow breathing, and you're moving more towards now deeper, for more fulfilling breaths of peace and calm, and to align with that energy and that potential that is there for us and that we're entering into, to create and carve away time for yourself. And they're literally showing me a sword carving away that time that you created yourself. Just like you get that snowball moving and gaining momentum, you carve out the time for yourself. To gain more clarity, wisdom, to tune into yourself, and to be able to move to the next level in a greater sense of peace and alignment and grace. And that's something I'm hearing your soul has been craving, needing, striving for. You've been hungry, thirsty for this. And also on that note, some palate changes you may have noticed over the last several months, sort of changes in your diet, food habits, or tendencies, or what you like or not, or following more what your body is needing and craving. So keeping that cycle going, as well as exercise. So as we move into the end of April, we will begin this whole period of Pluto retrograde in Capricorn. So it's just really worth mentioning, because this will be obviously for several months. So there'll be this sort of background energy outside of all the sort of light coming in and the changes and the eclipses, which I'll move into in a moment, where If any old wounds come back to the surface to be shown to you, or the potential of that sort of dark, doomy depths, right, of your soul, because that will weave in and out, I'm feeling, emotionally, and for you to really look in there and go there so that you can embark on your higher soul self evolution's path. And so you got to go down to go up. So if any old wounds resurface, look in there, go there, do the deep dive healing work. Do the self-work so you can rise up and above and be a freer self, that you can move into a new reality without those old hinges and setbacks and just like wanting to rid of that old lower version self. And I feel like there's been a series and cycles of those old selves, and now moving into a sort of a new platform. So we have right at the end of the month on April 30th or perhaps May 1st, solar eclipse in Taurus. And this is a really sort of supercharged energy, a heightened energy. I'll place a link below this video of my article or videos about eclipse energy and how you can the meaning of it, how you can maximize it. So go ahead and look at that. But in the meantime, just know that now, as you enter this May, and that first half of May, you're in this beautiful sort of open expanse doorway of heightened eclipse energy. So late April, you were moving up into it, and now that threshold has opened, and through these new unknown doorways you walk. There can be some really massive changes during this time, depending on where you are on your soul path. What's happening in your life. But for many people, especially I'm feeling us intuitives, empathic people who have been on this path for quite some time, big changes are in store and in the horizon. And big changes don't always need to be like in your face, like, wow, oh my God. Sometimes they are like, oh my God, my life's totally different now, or that's just a massive change. Sometimes they can be subtly moving through, and you're subtly already now. I've been shown you're already changing. This is already happening, and it's just leading. They're showing me you're on this conveyor belt, and it was slower, and it's been moving forward, and right through April, now into May, it kind of turns that conveyor belt that you're walking on, like those airport walker movers. You suddenly are in this new horizon and this new landscape, and it's like you suddenly evolved into something else, or your scene is different. So really it feels like that there's opportunity there for you if that's the way you're heading, if there's things you're wanting to do, if there's goals that you've wanted to really work on, or something you really want to open up and start, or finally get off the road, then this will be a great time for it. So in that first half of May, there's a sense of expansive action. Spirit is really opening up the possibilities. There's a feeling of a more expansive realm of the outer world. So this will be a great time for meditation, contemplation, going on soul journeys. It just feels quite magical in that way. So you can tap into spirit if you're that way inclined, and really gain some deep kind of spiritual next level insight. And finally you'll begin to see the crumbling of the old, not just in your own life, everything crumbling before you, what you once knew now being a totally new vista, but also the outer world around you, the crumbling of systems and, of that dense sort of matrix that we've been living in, showing in different ways, shapes and forms. And so throughout any storms, throughout any sort of war energy and difficultness and political corruption and disruption and all that kind of stuff, socio-economic world, there is a bright new world birthing, and now it's time to reflect on, and more than reflect on, they say actually focus on and bring about, because it's already here. So in a way you bring it about into your consciousness, but it's actually already here. It's about shifting your perspective into that upper, higher new world emerging versus the lower density world. So it's shifting your consciousness from one plane of existence to another. So So then in mid-May, we have the next eclipse, and this one's a full moon total lunar eclipse in Scorpio and a blood moon. So it's really right in the middle of May. So we have the first one end of April, early May, and then the second one now. And there's this sort of feeling of, Scorpio is quite sort of mysterious, and it's quite deep and introspective. So I really feel like it's sort of, they're showing me it's like you're turning yourself inside out to be able to air out any lower energies and finally sort of have this rebirth feeling or initiate yourself to the new you that is birthing and blooming and sort of on the precipice of coming about in your life, and that feeling of being on the precipice of change. And so that's a great time also to just get some things done, particularly also because there will actually be a Mercury retrograde mid-month, so starting. So really look into those fine details and really think of yourself as finishing things off, looking at the details, rebirthing, renewing yourself, taking care of yourself, reviving your inner spirit so it can come to the core on the outer. So they're showing me bringing your inner outer. So you've been really working on your inner a lot, or your inner has felt sort of in turmoil and chaos in the last several weeks and months, and now we're blooming into something new. And as it's blooming, you can share that bloom with others. So whereas before you were like a sort of rotting corpse of a castle of old plants and flowers in a weathered garden bed, now the new sun on the new horizon and all this new energy coming in and all the shifts, new flowers are blooming and growing in that space, and then it's like you can branch out to the outer world from there. So there can be a lot of potential sort of action energy, especially so May 25th, Mars enters Aries, and a lot of that is about spirit and courage and pioneering movement and physical activity. Could also be some abrupt anger and things like that. But you really want to move towards action. And so, however, if there's other energies pulling you back, such as the Mercury retrograde energy, perhaps even the Pluto retrograde I mentioned earlier, then use that pulling back energy to realize, finalize, work on the finer details, okay? And then you can move towards moving forward when the time is right for you. There has been this kind of conflict between trying to move forward or wanting to move forward and being pulled back the last several months, and you've not quite felt there yet. So now in May, it's time to we're moving to that next level. So just allow yourself to be wherever you are, but at the same time, I am reminded again of that you push that little snowball forward. So towards the end of May, you might need a little bit of self-discipline to keep that ball rolling, and also to keep you in focus and alignment. You might feel like you're drifting in the waters. So that's where you just need to think, okay, let's hone it back in. Let's really ground into the earth energy and feel that love energy, that higher energy. And at the same time, ground in a sense of focus so that you can move forward in a way that is much more clear, knowing and decisive. And a good crystal for that is fluorite to help you along, and also hearing lepidolite, black tourmaline, smoky quartz if you're feeling like you need that sort of dissipation of the lower energies still, and selenite for that higher energy, as well as rose quartz, as well as what else is coming through, the yellow one, citrine for your solar plexus, especially feeling of self-power and control, those kinds of things, and also for monetary abundance and gain. There's changes in the monetary aspect too to keep in mind, but really there's so many crystals that you can work with as well to help keep you in alignment and help sort of pull you through to the next level, because the angels are showing me as the energies change and shift and get higher, so do our crystals change and shift with it, and also help teach and guide and sort of assist us during this great epoch and period of change that we're all in, this time of great awakening. So just keep that in alignment, and hopefully that helps keep you feeling a bit more sane and knowing what's happening, and to help align you to the higher light or the higher timelines for yourself, which are always here for us as a potential. So it's like just hopping on and choosing which train do I go on, and they'll just say the light train is the way. All right, God bless everyone. Talk soon.